Right, welcome back to the 6th episode of ThisIsBS. I have a fantastic guest here as well, an award-winning guest as well, for those of you who are in the recruitment industry and know this space. I am here with the one and only Cam Norton. Now, I would say of Davidson, but you've recently changed roles, so why don't you talk more about what you do now and who you're with?
Yeah, so I'm an enterprise sales manager with Expert 360, and Expert 360 is an online talent platform. So what we do is connect talent with project opportunities, and it's basically powering the on-demand talent economy and trying to find a way to allow freelancers to really make working for themselves work.
Okay, so you were previously in recruitment and now you're in this position. So just before we get started on all the BS, it'd be good to know what has been like the best part of this transition so far. What's been interesting?
Yeah, so it was a really tough decision to move out of recruitment, especially post winning an award for recruitment. But for me, it was really about stretching myself and getting a little bit more personal and professional development, but also future-proofing myself a little bit with moving into that technology, software, startup, digital world. And 3 weeks in, Expert 360 has certainly opened my eyes up to a different element of the Australian economy.
Awesome. I think it's actually quite interesting transitioning, because I did the same. I transitioned from a recruitment firm to a startup tech firm, and the transition is pretty interesting, to say the least. So, and that was in 2015, and now I'm here talking to you, so very exciting times. Okay, cool. So, for those of you who don't know the premise of the show, we start off with a couple of usually 10 quick fire questions, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to move straight into the BSs. Now, the BSs are 3 things from your industry or from your life that you think are BS and want to talk about. So, let's get straight into it. What is your first BS today?
Yeah, so the first BS is one which is focused on an old saying which a lot of people have heard, which is the players change, but the game remains the same. So this could be looking at recruitment, it could be looking at other industries, but I think these days, yes, the players do change, but the game is also changing as well, and that's one of the reasons why I moved into the technology and software startup world, is because fundamentally businesses and business models are being disrupted, and we've seen that whether it's through taxis and Uber, whether we've seen that in the restaurant business with Uber Eats, even the real estate sector with Airbnb coming in as an option for people to essentially have time on the beach but not own a beach house. So I think the players will continue to change, but the game will also change. So it's really important people are adaptable.
Yeah, okay, so you're kind of saying the concept of you've got people who will still have the same kind of mind, but the business will change sort of around you and stuff like that. Interesting. So what my curiosity factor would be in that is, what's prompted this as to be a frustration in your role or in your life? What's made you think, well, this is actually a problem?
Yeah, so I think it's probably coming a little bit from my, family's evolution, where my dad has worked in the same industry, same organisation for 40 plus years. And whilst that's amazing, and I'm really proud of him for doing that, I think the generations of today as well as of the future will need to just have an adaptable mindset. And I've put it on my LinkedIn previously that I moved to Expert 360 to develop my transformation asset as an individual. So I think that's something which we're probably not taught in school, and it might not be something we're guided on because our parents have had that mentality of a job for life is fantastic, whereas we've probably had 6 or 7 jobs by the time we're 30, 35.
Well, I think it's coming down to the nature of technology building and with the world of work. And I think if you look at any sort of technology bell curve, you'll notice that everything sort of has that 1 to 2 year shelf life when it goes from being an innovator through to an early adopter and so on. And I find the biggest transition point for that is actually people keeping up with those changes. So you can think to this, to anybody watching, regarding, I spoke with Keela last week in regards to the investigation of Snapchat and recruitment for McDonald's. And it's the same concept where it's like the nature of recruitment may not change, but the nature of the technology and ways you do it does. So the question I then have around that is looking at the changing tides of technology in recruitment and in say sales and just in tech as well. Do you see any downside to the changing technology that's coming through, or like the rapid technology growth and the tech world or in sales, is there anything that stands out to you that's not a positive there?
Yeah, so I think one of the big risks or perhaps issues in the future will be that technology will almost overtake the human element, but then in my eyes anyway, it will pull back to still have that human element. So there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, process automation, all that sort of stuff, which is pretty powerful. But at the end of the day, I think people will continue to buy from people, especially in service type industries. So whilst we still have apps and things like that where we can order our food or book a holiday and things like that, I think there still will be value in the human component, and that's the point of difference that is very hard to replicate.
You see, I find that the most intriguing part of all this is the nature of human interaction is always going to be there in some capacity, and I think when you look at the places like the Ubers and Deliveroo's and even things down to like Booking.com or Airbnb, there's still that interaction because you're purchasing uses of products or service off someone in some capacity. Someone still owns that particular piece of technology or service. So to me, I find it very intriguing that the risk, there's a lot of people that talk about the risk of AI taking over their role or taking their job, but it's quite intriguing if you look at some of the analysis that's online that's talked about that. Some of the more highly skilled roles are actually moving towards a lot of AI. Let's say, for example, surgeons and doctors, a lot of the stuff they did 5, 10, 15 years ago has a lot more technology in it. So you get a lot of those who feel like a lot of the service roles or some of those ones that are more like towards the bottom end of like the junior roles are going, but I think it's actually kind of squeezing itself like this. That middle tier is where human interaction is so important. So okay, cool. So out of all this, we've just kind of discussed one key point. So what would be your solution to the BS that people have of this?
Yeah, so solution-wise, I think it is that element of remaining adaptable and possibly putting themselves into situations where they are uncomfortable, so that they learn to be uncomfortable, and that's the whole reason I've made a move in my career is to get uncomfortable again, and that's where the greatest growth comes, is when you've got to figure out what you need to do to be successful.
I like that. I think when it comes to adaptability, it's kind of up to you as a person as well, because I've known people in my life who've gone from job to job in 3 months, 6 months, 9 month stints, and they're some of the most intelligent, articulate people because they want a new challenge every time, whereas others are fine being in a role for 5, 10, 15 years. So,
and there's no right or wrong to
exactly
how your career should look, and I think that's the thing, that some people are happy to stay in a job for 10 years and be in a comfort zone. Others aren't.
I think the BS to me out of all that is like the stigma or the idea that you have to be something, you have to train for something, get into that, keep growing. Like how many people from university or haven't gone to university, whatever it may be, are still doing what they studied or stuff like that. For example, I did marketing and information science.
Yep.
I work in a video company now. Who knows? Before that, an identity verification company, a gamification company. It's all about challenging yourself. So no, I totally agree. I think there's an absolute BS around the nature of people who aren't willing to adapt, and then when people do, they aren't quick enough to pick up the technology.
Yeah,
that's the big part to me. So look, I totally agree. I couldn't fathom any other idea there. It's good. So yeah. All right, 1 down, 2 to go. And on this series, I'm pretty generous and say everything's BS because I'm a very gracious one, and also I hate disappointing people. So I now am on to the second one. So let's discuss. So what's your second BS?
Yeah. So the second BS I think is and it was created in the 1980s through a Dolly Parton song about...
I love country. Before you even get into it, if you rip on country, I swear to God, go on.
So, working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. And in the song, she does speak about it fairly negatively, about having to work 9 to 5 and the grind that is. And I think that the BS is that the 9 to 5 is the way of the future. We've been taught that a 9 to 5 job is good, but I think there's a really increased demand for flexible working. So, you might rephrase Dolly's song to, instead of working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, you might make it flexible working. Yeah.
I think you're preaching to me so hard here, because for those who know me, my role is focusing on America and APAC, right? So I have super early mornings, and sometimes my European clients, I've got late nights. So if I wasn't having flexible and I had to come in every day, 9 to 5, be clock in, clock out, it wouldn't function well for what we're trying to do as a business. Now, what I'd be curious to ask, and this is sort of me playing the devil's advocate, is 40-hour work week, you've got a certain amount of work that you've done and you're paid to do that amount of work. What do you say to those who go, well, you need to earn your 40 hours in that sense?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to attitude shift. And we are just programmed over time to think in a certain way, and that's conditioning through the social world that we live in. But I think the attitude shift to being focused on outcomes is critical, and I've been fortunate to work for a few managers and leaders that have really understood that, and I'm the same. A 9 to 5 is really tough to integrate with your work-life balance, and even just that work-life balance idea, I think, is probably got some BS to it as well. Is that it's probably more of an integration. So as you said, sometimes you're on an early morning call, sometimes you're on a late night call, and working your life around that. I think that's certainly the way of the future, and again, why I joined Expert 360 is a lot of the talent and experts we have on the platform, they don't want a 9 to 5. They're exceptional at their job, but they might be a mum of 2 kids, and they want to work around that family commitment.
So, and that's another part we haven't even touched on yet, is the nature of, yes, 9 to 5 is a construct that was put together back in the day, we parents will work for it and stuff. But I find the interesting part is that with the way society has moved, not only socially but technologically and all that sort of stuff as well, is that you've got a lot more parents that are coming back into the workforce, and sort of the nature of the new age mum or dad that comes in and can balance that, which it didn't used to be a lot of the time back in the day. But to me, a question I would really pose to anybody that is going to contest this 9 to 5 side of things is that if I was to work 20 hours but got all my objectives done, is there as much quality if I work 40 hours and got my objectives done? Because I find that in my workload, I'm working at different times, and I'll go, well, I might be more productive from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then if I need to take a few hours off and then go from there, it might be interesting. So what I'll ask you in that sense is that, what is the way that an old school business or old school mindset can get out of that into this new age thinking of you can be flexible with your hours?
Yeah, so I think it's probably getting back to, well, what do your employees want? And just having that conversation as to what's important to people. And there's not too many people I know that would say, I want to work a set 40-hour work week or 38-hour work week. The responses you might get will be, I want to be able to leave early to pick up my kids from school. I want to be able to leave early to join my sports team and put in a good training session. It could be anything. It could be go to the gym. But I think organisations that do have that old school mentality of 9 to 5, they'll really struggle to get talent and good talent in the door as time progresses, because I think people are becoming aware that there's employers out there that are really pushing the edge on what work-life means.
Well, I think that's another part with some of these new age technology businesses that are coming in. You're looking at the Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples. There is contrasting information in regards to people looking at flexible hours, flexible style of management, KPIs versus OKRs, for example. That's always an interesting debate. But one thing I find most intriguing about this whole conversation, this whole topic, is that you've got people who are now looking at this flexible working far more positively than they would have 5 to 10, 15 years ago. But I feel like you kind of have to experience it yourself and understand that. So I've been lucky to be in businesses where that's been very common. So, all right, well this is all good, but what would be your solution overall to this? What would be the way in which you could convince someone that this is a good idea? And I've already kind of asked it already, but what I would be curious is what is something you could say to someone who's like, I only work 9 to 5, or I only supply 9 to 5.
Yeah, so I think it's challenging that mindset and calling it out to say, well, why? Why do you work 9 to 5? It might be, well, that's the norm. That's what we do around here. And you think of cultural change, it's the one thing you hear is that, well, that's the way we do things around here. And we live in an age where innovation, disruption, technology is pushing things forward, and if people aren't starting to shift the way they behave, they could get left behind.
Well, that's the great thing that comes from this. I always ask myself is going, away from the 9 to 5 is how many people use TikTok?
Yeah.
Millions and millions and millions of people, and that's been around for only a small amount of time. In a year's time, there'll be a new version of that.
Yeah.
It just happens all the time. It's just new. So, like, I totally get it. Flexible. I mean, you've literally. I don't know if you've made these BSs just to help me and have me say yes, but I don't get it.
Convincing you.
Oh, you don't need to convince me, mate. As soon as you said, I was like, oh, this is me. Exactly. So, no, I'm totally in agreement. The only thing that I would say could be a potential roadblock to this is making sure that people understand that if we're giving you more flexible hours, you still have to show us the results.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for me out of all this, is that what I kind of get a little bit frustrated on with it is people who are preaching for this particular sort of style but aren't showing the results that could come with that.
Yeah.
A great example is in New Zealand, there is a company that's implemented a 4-day work week. Have you seen this? It's fantastic.
Not in New Zealand.
No, in New Zealand, the company details will be down here, but they implemented a 4-day work week and productivity went through the roof, you know. So, but you've got to find it for your own business, kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So,
and I think personally, like I can't remember the last time I worked a 38-hour work week, to be honest, because I just don't track it. But that means that I'm putting in effort outside of hours. You know, the mobile device is an absolute godsend, but also a curse, is that you can respond to things on the move, whether you're on the train, whether you're a passenger in the car, whether you're on a plane,
whether
in the
you're
airport.
whether you're at Queen Vic Market and your girlfriend's telling you to buy her some churros and you're too busy answering LinkedIn requests, that's definitely what's
You got to
happening.
pay for them.
Oh no, that's the problem as well. It's just don't do that. Relationships are more important. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's definitely the yes. So that's good. All right, we're now on to number 3. You're 2 for 2. So we're gonna move on to something that the topic I actually find this one the most interesting of all your topics in terms of what BS here. So, what is your third BS today?
Yeah, so the third BS is that an employer or an organisation is responsible for your development, whether it be personal or professional development. So I'd call BS on that. That I think individuals need to take ownership of their own development. If your employer invests in you and does come to the party with professional development plans, etc., fantastic, and really go to town on that and make the most of it. But outside of business hours and outside of your working week, you should still be doing more. So we live in, again, an age where we have access to just incredible knowledge, incredible expertise, and all you need to do is jump on an app and press a button and you'll download a podcast that goes for an hour that will change your life. You can access electronic books and they're delivered in an instant. I remember back in the 90s, and I look young, but I'm a little bit older than you might think. But
same here. I'm 45. But
back in the day, you'd have to go to a library to get a book, or you'd have to order a book, whether it be over the phone or when websites were starting to take off. You'd order something through a website, but it'd still take 3-4 weeks to show up, especially in Australia. So I think we live in a time where we've got incredible access to knowledge, incredible access to people sharing their own personal story, and being able to learn from that. And a lot of the time, the content that you can learn from is free. So I'd really encourage people to take ownership of their personal development, because my attitude is that the more you learn, the more you will earn. It might not show up straight away, but over time, you're building up your capability, your skill set, your knowledge base. And the best way I've found anyway is to learn from successful people, role model what they're doing, and you're bound to end up somewhere half decent.
I couldn't agree more. And the reason why I say that is because what I find interesting, and especially in the millennial generation, is like we have this ability that no other generation before us has had to learn, to understand, to grow our knowledge base. And I find it incredibly intriguing when people go, when people are looking to apply for roles and they're like, I need a company that will, teach me all this course and stuff like that. I'm like, I get that. I understand why you're coming from there. But another part to it is, if you aren't taking the chance to kind of grow your own knowledge or skill set across multiple areas, then you are doing yourself a disservice. So as an example for me, I listen to a load of podcasts, read a lot of books and stuff like that. And what I've always come to be interested in is that I will find topics that I never thought I'd be interested in, And I watched one video and I'm like, okay, this is really intriguing to me. I want to continue learning about it. And it's funny how I got into sort of creating more long-form content is more learning from people who are creating this and helping people. What I would say to bring this back to a little bit of the devil's advocate element is that, do you think that you talk about it's not a business's responsibility, but there is some form of expectation to grow someone in your business? Because the great Richard Branson quote is like,
yeah, I think it's something like, what happens if we invest in our people and they leave? And Richard, to his CFO, said, well, what happens if we don't and they stay? So I think
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
it took me like a minute and a half to get that out.
See, this is all the reading.
Exactly. I'm just reading too many things.
So in response to that, I think organisations do have some responsibility to their employees and obviously making them better, enhancing their capability, creating career paths that they do stay. And it'd be ideal if you're in an organisation that invests in you and you continue to expand your value to that organisation, but you also grow as an individual. So I think it is probably a conversation with your manager, and a pretty honest one, to say, well, what do you want to get out of your time here? How long would you like to be here? Because if you're there for 3 years, well, you can achieve a lot. If you're planning for it to be a stepping stone for 12 months, well, it's a different set of motivators. That you're not looking to develop within the organisation, you're looking to
develop your own career.
Yeah, so it's being honest with yourself as to what your motivations are within an organisation, but also understanding what's going to add value to the organisation that you are in, and why would they invest in you in a certain area. So I remember a story when I was younger, early career, that I went off to a 2-day training course, and not sure how much the organisation spent on it, but I came back full of excitement, full of passion, full of great ideas for the organisation, and no one asked me, what did you learn and how can we apply it? The only thing I got asked was, how was the spread? How was lunch?
Yeah.
And
was it good though?
Oh, it was a good lunch, but my response was, for the price we paid, I hope I got more than just a good lunch. So
I can go to Huxley Burger down the road and get a free lunch. I like that much. Okay, so that to me is another part I kind of want to touch on, is the nature of people not understanding the value of these trainings when they do get there. So to give you an example, I've trained recruiters and TA and employee brand people all around the globe on how to utilize video properly, right? And you'll get customers who will be in the session and they'll take it, and then you'll get a question from them 2 days later or something covered in that topic, like the exact same thing that you say, and they weren't listening or stuff like that. And because they didn't value the time then, but then they want to get the answer then. So what I kind of bring this down to is that it's up to you and your work ethic to know if you want to grow those skill sets. And what I find is the hardest part to understand in this whole system, for those who don't, is you're going to be left behind if you don't adapt. Going back to our first BS point. But in terms of learning, I find that if you go onto YouTube, literally just go onto YouTube and find any helpful tip series there, you'll ask yourself, what can I do as a tip series on YouTube? Or what can I do something like that? This is why I find places like Skillshare is a really good place to go. If you haven't got it, I've got it, it's amazing, it's a really good thing. Your Audibles, those sort of places where you can learn all this stuff. So the next question I'd have for you on that is, if someone is not currently learning, or not actively going about learning new skills, where would someone like yourself go to learn all this information?
Yeah, so there's probably two answers to that. The first one would be either have a look around your organisation or your network for someone that's in the position you want to be, and try and develop the mentor-mentee relationship with them. So for me, mentors have been tremendous across all aspects of my life, and I've been really fortunate to have people that were willing to invest their time in seeing me succeed in various parts of life. But that would be the first one. Try and get a good mentor, because mentors can change your life. And they're not the same mentors, but from when I was 15 to 18, they've changed probably 6 or 7 times, the same as jobs. But each person has played a critical role.
Well, I find that interesting as well, because I've had managers, and I'm saying mentors and managers, who I've not really got along with, but have taught me so much. A good example is the first manager I had in recruitment. an awesome lady by the name of Liana Kupasani. Right? So she was really very diligent on training me a lot of the time, but I was too young and naive and kind of arrogant to understand what she was teaching me. So when you look back on it, you go, yes, this is fantastic. But if you take the information from your organisation and people that you know, you're far more likely to succeed with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just
So the first part being the mentoring. The second part would be, for me anyway, is podcasts. A lot of them are free. I think most of them are free. Some don't even have ads. Like the authors or the people doing the podcast are doing it out of the goodness of their heart. You know, sharing their story, sharing what they know because they just want to make a difference. So that's a really good way to, I guess, learn quickly. You can do it, you know, doing a lot of different activities from a subconscious learning perspective. That I'll often listen to podcasts when I'm vacuuming the house, mowing the lawns.
Doing what I call dead time. It's kind of like the time where you could be, I'm sitting at home, I'm playing PlayStation in my underwear. I could be listening to the TV or listening to a podcast. That's excellent. So don't picture that. It's not going to be sad. Don't you? Nah, that's fine. That's why I live alone, guys. Well, that's what I really find enjoyable is that you've got, you know, learnings, different types of learnings. Everyone's, you know, you've got Audible, viewing, stuff like that. In terms of, learning stuff, so look, I totally understand. In fact, you've covered, you know, I don't even need a solution to this because you've kind of covered all that. Is that one element of this that is important to me is developing your own work ethic and what's got your own style. There'll be times where I will strive as hard as I possibly can to work as hard as I can. Other times, I want to sit around and do nothing for like hours at a time. It's all about maximising that time. So I couldn't agree more. I think you've clearly covered something that, for my generation, I think more than anybody else, is that we are unable to focus, and when we do focus, we can achieve great things. So no, I totally agree. It's absolutely BS. So let's break it down. Rather than the solution, let's kind of a one-liner of going, you know, what would be a suggestion for you in terms of if you want to take the step now?
So one-liner for you would be lean into it. So if I talk to people, and I do mentor a few people about learning and development and growth, and everyone's keen to, you know, get somewhere else in life and somewhere better. But a lot of them might respond with, well, I don't read self-development books. You know, that's geeky to do that. Yeah, that might be, but if it gets you to where you want to be, who cares?
It's all about the journey, not just the destination.
So I think if people lean into that area of the unknown, so, you know, get comfortable being uncomfortable, lean into it, have a go, learn as you go, adapt as you go, and, you know, you'll end up somewhere hopefully better. And if you don't, well, that's okay. You've built that transformation asset to continue the journey until you land where you want to be.
Strings to the bow, as I say, strings to the bow. It's as simple as that. So totally agree. I think that those are all really important factors in, you know, growing yourself as a person. So, cool. So those three BSs, I think, are all incredibly, you know, obvious to me, someone who's been, you know, personally affected by that. So couldn't agree more. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and having a conversation. As is tradition, we try to give our haunted guest a gift, and I've got the perfect gift for you, something new. So what's important to me is making sure that my guests know how much we appreciate them here. So I think by giving you the opportunity to have something from the heart of VMJ to you, I think you have earned this today, and we're really excited for you to have it.
So we've just painted the house. We just bought a new property. We've got nice clean walls.
And that's gonna fit in, isn't it?
Well, I'm looking at it, and the frame's not too bad, but I think this the photos are probably just going to make the house look a little bit ugly, mate. So probably going to have to hand it back to you, and you can give it to the next guest, maybe.
I felt rejection before. I felt pain, but this is just something else. I've devalued your house, apparently. So I like to put that back and keep that for myself, then, apparently. So awesome. I'd like to thank you for coming along. If you want to know more about Cam or more about Expert 360, where can we find it?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's probably your best bet. I've got a fairly public profile there, so jump on there, have a look. There's some articles that people might like to read through as well. I try and add value to my network over time. If not, get in touch with Ben. He can shoot you my details, email, mobile. Just get in touch, and yeah, happy to connect.
Yeah, I will give it to you, so make sure you call them after hours, as we discussed before. They're flexible 9 to 5, so no longer a day. Look, really appreciate you coming on the show. As you've seen, there's been some great BSs throughout the process. We've done here with some fantastic guests. But what I really want to kind of leave everyone with from my end is that this show is all about helping people and really about giving people some suggestions or some ideas or solutions to everyday problems. So before I let you go, what would be the one big takeaway that someone would want to get from a video that was done today? What would they take away?
Yeah, so I think the one big takeaway would be push yourself to learn. And even my experience with VideoMyJob as a platform, the first time I ever did a video, I was super nervous, I was sweating, I was flushed in the neck, I was fearing judgment.
You're describing my Saturday nights, by the way, so that's fine.
So yeah, fearing judgment, but again, leaning into it, push yourself to learn, adapt, grow, and yeah, you'll end up hopefully winning an award too.
Yeah, it's a really good one as well. If you haven't seen the SEEK-SARA Awards, the details will be, depending on what platform you're in the description there. If you want to know more about Expert 360 or VideoMyJob, the details will also be there. But as for now, really appreciate you coming on. And the next guest that we'll be bringing on, it's a secret right now. It's not because I don't have one, it's because I don't have one. So we'll be on soon again. We'll come back to you soon. Have a great day, and hopefully you enjoy ThisIsBS. So thanks, mate. Appreciate it. All right, cool. Done.